Welcome to this pre-action accelerator briefing on Wisconsin's need for a more competitive and sustainable workforce. I'm Dale Knapp, Director of Forward Analytics, and today we're going to take a few minutes to look at why Wisconsin has a labor shortage and what our workforce looks like going forward. As employers across the state know, Wisconsin has a workforce shortage, and the unemployment numbers really back that up. In 2018, we had 3% unemployment, a new post-World War II record low, beating out the 1999 3.1% rate. However, as we'll see, today's unemployment rate is significantly different from where we were in 1999. In one of my research studies, I created a graphic to show the differences between where we were in 2000 and where we are today, and I call it the workforce replacement rate. Essentially, it looks at the ratio of the young people in our state, those under 15, to the 50 to 65. If you think about it, the 50 to 65-year-old population, most of them will generally retire over the next 15 years. And who's going to replace them in the workforce? It's those that are under 15 right now. So when you look at that ratio, you get a sense of how fast we can grow our workforce over the ensuing 15 years. If you go back to 1990, we had a 1.75% rate. In other words, 175 more young people for every 100 that are nearing retirement. By 2000, that was down to 1.42. So we had a 3.1% unemployment rate, but our workforce replacement rate was good at the time, so we knew that it was sort of a temporary issue in terms of workforce shortage. If you look at 1990, when we were at 1.75, over the ensuing 15 years, our workforce grew 17%. As that ratio moved down, we grew 4%. The challenge is, if you look at where we are today, we're at 0.87. In other words, in 2018, for every 100 workers that are nearing retirement over the next 15 years, we only have 87 young people willing or available to fill that hole. In other words, the only solution to our workforce challenge now, that this 3% unemployment rate, is migration. We do not have the future workforce in the state currently to replace those that are going to retire over the next 15 years. We can look at it another way. We can look at this challenge another way and look at the population projections that the Department of Administration puts out every 10 years. When you look at those projections going to 2040, the 20 to 64-year-old population, the prime workforce in this state, is going to be essentially flat over the next 20 years. That means the labor force is going to be flat and possibly even declining. But we go back to migration, and one of the challenges in doing these projections is you have to make some assumptions about migration. Baked into those projections are migration projections significantly different from what's happening right now. 2010 to 15, we were losing population. They're projecting 113,000 new people coming to the state between 2015 and 2020, another 95,000 between 2025. In order to just remain where we are, we need that level of migration. Now, we got that in the 1990s, so it is possible to do that. But the question is, are we getting that? Because if we're not, we're going to not only just see a flat workforce, we're going to see a declining workforce. And we can look at where we are in terms of migration so far over this decade. And generally, we've seen a net outflow of people. It's relatively small, but that's turning around. In 2018, we had a net in-migration of about 7,000 people. But if we go back to our previous slide, between 2015 and 2020, we need a net gain of about 113,000. So we're falling behind in terms of that net migration. More importantly, we're falling behind in terms of key components of the workforce. In one of the studies I did earlier this spring, I looked at migration patterns by age group to see where we were gaining and where we were losing. Historically, Wisconsin has not done well with young people. Those 15 to 19 as they graduate high school and head into their college years, and those of college age as they age out of college and enter the workforce. If you notice in the slide, between 1990 and 2010, we lost between 1,000 on net to almost 30,000 of each of these young group, this young population over 5 years. 2010 to 15, we continue to lose the college educated, the orange bars in there, about 30,000 of these young people as they graduate college. On the positive side, we have done better in terms of those young people graduating high school and entering college. So we're a net positive there. But we continue to struggle with young people. If we're going to grow our workforce in the future, we need to attract and retain these young people. But where our strength has always been, it's been with young families. We have been very good at attracting young families to the state. You look at the population, 25 to 44. During 1990 to 95, when our net migration was significantly positive, we brought in over 60,000 of these young people ages 25 to 44, the young people that are in their family formation years. And in each of the 5-year periods after that, we gained between 17,000 and 25,000 of these young people. The challenge for Wisconsin is when you look at the most recent period we were able to look at, 2010 to 15, we turned a net positive into a negative, losing about 16,000 of these young people. So in the age group that Wisconsin typically has been very strong, we're now seeing a net decline of these people. When you look at that decline of these young families, that's one of the reasons that we have the workforce shortage today. We're not getting those young people here and into the workforce. But it's also creating a significant long-term challenge. With those people in their family formation years, not only do they add to the workforce today, but generally they bring with them children. Between 1990 and 2010, we brought in between 30,000 and 60,000 children under 10 with their parents. Significant gains in terms of young people. That's the workforce 20 years out. Between 2010 and 15, that number was down to under 3,400, creating a significant long-term challenge for the state. When you combine that with births in 2018, the lowest since 1973 and declining steadily since 2007, what you see is not only does Wisconsin have a challenge currently in terms of attracting people that are workforce ready, we're seeing declines in our youth population, which is our workforce 20 years out. Look at the under 10 population in 2010 versus 2018. We're down 43,000 in that age group, almost a 6% decline. The 10 to 18 population, we're down 25,000, a 3.7% decline. So not only do we have this challenge now, not having those young people going through our school system, eventually entering the workforce, we've created a long-term challenge for the state. So in summary, Wisconsin's demography is such that workforce shortages will likely be with us for decades. Declining birth rates, shifting migration patterns exacerbate the problem. And we know, given that workforce replacement rate, the only solution is migration. But other states are facing these challenges as well. So we're not alone here. We're out there competing with other states for workers. So the solution for Wisconsin is we need to be a leader in recruiting and attracting workers from other states and other countries. And this isn't something that can be put off for another 5 or 10 years. This is something that has to be put in place now if we're going to have success over the next 10 years.